picked the first number, 646. I dialed that, and then
Yep.
they said, put the ID number. I did, and then it just stuck. It's frozen on this.
Yeah, so you did it by phone, not by video. That's okay.
So I can't do anything.
She won't be able to post anything either.
I know. I can't help or do anything. I can just listen. Yeah.
Well, Melissa, if you go to the Somerset page that Elizabeth has, or to my Facebook page, there's plenty of stuff out there if you want to show it. But I'm real happy with just doing a Q&A and just talking about it. Because I
don't need to show anything.
Yeah, I've done the Song and Pony, the Cotton Pony show before, and I don't know, you try to give people too much information and they can't.
Yeah, they don't.
It doesn't
The
stick.
thing is, all right, sorry. I'm gonna try to download Zoom on this old iPad.
And Melissa, it keeps falling off the edge of my mind that you and I met down in Providence. That was a good day.
Melissa's still there?
Yeah.
Melissa, I don't think she's there anymore.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I'm here. No, I just wanted to let you know we are live on YouTube as well. I was able to access that.
You're on YouTube?
Yep, I'm on both. Mm-hmm.
How do I get that? How do I watch it on YouTube?
I'll send the link after. You'd have to be subscribed to my YouTube channel. I can
subscribe to you right now. I got 5 minutes, 2 minutes. What's your YouTube channel? I'm on it.
Let me see if I can send it. Hold on. I'm afraid to play around with this too much. Hold on a second.
Do you have the name of it? Because I can look it up.
Yeah, hold on a second. Then we'll get going. Let me just share it. I'm going to copy the link. And all right. Let's see. So I'm going to put it in the chat.
She can't see. I don't know if she can see the chat the way she's coming.
Oh, yeah, that's right. She probably can't. Okay.
I see the phone. I don't see anything.
All right, I'll send it to you in Messenger, and then we'll get started.
The only thing, Elizabeth, though, if you come into YouTube and you're on the phone, there'll be an echo because you'll have a voice coming in twice. So if you're watching it on YouTube, you want to turn off the sound, or you turn off the sound either on YouTube or on your phone so that you don't have the echo.
Right.
Let me just send this to you here, Elizabeth.
I don't understand why the phone doesn't let me do it. Don't a lot of people use the phone for Zoom?
Yes, but you didn't click on the Zoom link. Remember I said you could click on the Zoom link? You went on the phone.
I did. Oh, they asked me for that.
Yeah, you called. Yeah, you could just exit, leave the meeting.
Let me get out. Can I just get out of this?
Yep, and then go onto the link. And then we'll get this started by recording and go from there. So I'm going to start record. Okay, everyone, just so you know, I'm starting recording. You are free to not have video. We will have things muted. Please raise your hand for any questions. We are here till 8 p.m. So I'm going to start recording right now. Here we go. Perfect. All right, Karen, thank you so much for doing this. I am a big fan of yours. You are an expert in this field, and you're passionate. And, I wanted to set this up because I'm all about the education and people to be informed what's going on to make their best decisions, especially with Somerset having a vote for Article 35 tomorrow, a special town meeting. And, people need to know what's going on. Is there, so what could you tell us a little bit about this process of removing artificial fluoride in the water? And also, I don't think people understand that there is already natural fluoride. We're talking about the artificial fluoride. And kind of what's the process of that? And I'll start with that. And if anyone has questions, please raise your hand and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Melissa, for having me here because, when I'm doing a presentation, it can be a fire hose and it's just so much. And I much rather a Q&A or a debate format. So I really appreciate this opportunity. Back when fluoridation started, the U.S. government identified that most communities in the United States had less than and I mean like 97% had less than 0.3 or less fluoride in the water naturally occurring. And that was calcium fluoride. And that's interesting because calcium is a mineral, which is actually good for teeth and bones, that binds with fluoride and makes it less available to the body to assimilate. So they got it in their minds that fluoride is a fluoride is a fluoride, and they started putting fluoride salts and fluoride acids into the water. And this was basically an intention this was originated with corporate polluters who were using fluoride in great amounts, and they were polluting the water supplies. And because at that point in time, anything above 0.3 was considered kind of dangerous, they were telling corporate polluters to clean it up. So when they started saying that fluoride at 1.0 or 1.2 or 0.7 or whatever was good for you, it's like the movie Erin Brockovich. It was a bait and switch. It was never good for you, and it wasn't even the same thing. So fluoride varies around the country, and most of the time the naturally occurring stuff will be calcium fluoride at less than 0.3. And some places it will be more, and other places it will be pollution. So that's kind of how it all got started. Now, what was the other part of your question, Melissa?
Well, so how do we get this out now? Like it got this big, which again is just disgusting to me. And now people realize and they just accepted it and they missed the mark. What's the process now? Is Massachusetts the same for every other state? How do we get it removed? Is there's cost? Because I know that's what we're starting here in Somerset. And I know there's some places that already have started the process. So where are we and what do we do?
Yeah, that's the $64,000 question for Somerset for your town meeting. Now, the federal government does not mandate fluoride. And CDC can say we recommend it or whatever, but there's no force to make people fluoridate. That is up to the states and the municipalities. And most states will allow you to vote it in or vote it out, or there are all kinds of different ways of going about it. But Massachusetts is really unique. I believe there's one other state that's like Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, once you begin fluoridating, there is no mechanism under the law to end fluoridation. And Massachusetts, the Board of Health, the local Board of Health, which are the operating arm of the Mass Department of Public Health, can order fluoridation to begin. Now, when they order fluoridation to begin, initially, you have like a window of time. If you gather some signatures, you can have a referendum. And then if the people say, no, I don't care what the Board of Health says, we don't want to do it, then it doesn't happen. But if you don't win that petition generated referendum at the beginning of fluoridation, then it goes into the water and there's no mechanism for taking it out under the law. However, in Massachusetts, we have something known as the home rule exemption option. And this means that you can establish home rule over something within your municipality if you petition the state for that exemption to that specific law in order to do something. And it happens all the time. It happens all the time in communities. This isn't quite kosher, but because we need to do this or that or the other thing, we'll go for a home rule exemption. So that is the out in Massachusetts. We have to petition the state for a home rule exemption to Massachusetts law, chapter 111, section 8C. Now, that gets confused a lot of times when it really shouldn't. Believe me, it took me a while to figure it out too, and talk to a bunch of lawyers and different things. And KP Law has been quite clear in the past with other communities, very, very specific about this is what you need to do. It can't go through a vote of the people. It has to be the legislative branch of the community that does this. And in a city, the legislative branch is the city council. And in a town, the legislative branch is the town meeting. So Elizabeth put together a wonderful article. It's letter perfect, according to lawyers all over the place, that we want to petition the state for an exemption to that law, the fluoridation law, in order to establish a local law, a municipal law, for the purpose of banning fluoridation. Now, we pass this article tomorrow night. That doesn't take fluoride out. It just starts the process. It's phase one. Once we have that exemption in place, then you come back at the next town meeting and says, here is what we want to do. We want to ban fluoridation for these reasons, whatever. And then you vote it in or out. Now, the interesting thing about this is that there is a lawsuit that's going to be heard in February about the neurotoxicity, the developmental neurotoxicity of fluoride. This means baby brain poison. There are dozens of studies in America and Canada and Mexico and North America showing that when you have prenatal or postnatal exposure to fluoride, it makes changes in the brain. And the child is more likely to have learning disabilities like ADHD, impulse control issues, significantly lower IQ. There have been dose response benchmark analyses and these types of things, and they've found that even 0.2 parts per million will lower a child's IQ or make them more vulnerable to having other developmental problems while their brains are forming if the pregnant woman is drinking fluoridated water or is using it for making formula. And this is just confirmed over and over and over and over again. There are hundreds of studies saying this around the world, but I'm talking about dozens of studies in Canada, for heaven's sakes, and a couple in America, and a few in Mexico, and there's European studies as well. It is really serious stuff. So between saying, okay, we want control of our water here in Somerset, and actually putting the ordinance into place, saying we're banning fluoridation because we have that authority now with home rule, there's going to be a really important trial. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity for Somerset to pay attention. One more thing. I've actually managed to file a bill with the state legislature up there in Beacon Hill for a state law to ban fluoridation. Now, as you can imagine, I have a lot of people who are opposing that, dentists who are opposing that for whatever reasons. And they're trying to scuttle that. But we really want to see that pass too. So the state has authority, the municipality has authority, but the federal government does not have authority. The lawsuit is about the EPA's failure to follow their own regulations about protecting vulnerable populations like babies in the womb or in the arms. And that is what the focus of the lawsuit is. And again, I can talk forever, so I'm going to shut up now. I think I've answered your question. And ask me some more questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Please raise your hand in over here. You can just raise your hand or write it in the chat. I'm kind of asking general questions that have come to me to ask you. And you have filled it in greatly. I guess some other questions that have come up. Oh, I see somebody that wants to come on. Who are you, caller? Or does somebody want to talk? I do want to mute. Hold on a second. Coper, video. All right, it was the phone thing. So I'm just going to mute for now. Oops, you raise your hand because I don't want someone just interrupting. All right, so please mute your phone. And then if you want to ask a question, please, you know. So this is a big process. And, I guess some questions would be, well, gee, if it's bad for us, right? The government can't be bad. Like, why would they do this? Because I remember when it came up, they said, they added it for teeth and it was supposed to be healthy, right? And but then we see commercials like, oh, you don't use more than a little pea size of toothpaste because fluoride's poison. And then they say the water doesn't have enough stuff in it to poison you. And these are little arguments that people say all the time. And I'm like, well, what happens if you drink a gallon of it? You know, we have to understand that this was put in without a choice because the government, let's just say, said this was good for us. We didn't have a choice. And a lot of us, I guess back in the day, was like, oh, that's okay. And then all this research comes up. And now we're going through this, this process where it really should be a choice. And are there any studies, like, let's trust the science for some people, that shows since they added fluoride into the water, have we had less cavities? Have we had less problems with our teeth? Is there any studies to back up the benefit of fluoride in the water for the purpose of adding artificial fluoride?
Well, again,
I'll get to you next.
Yeah, remember, this began because the polluters were dumping a lot of fluoride into the water. And it was Aaron Brockovich who was creating problems. So a lawyer for one of these great big companies that was a polluter got a position in the FSA, which was the precursor to Health and Human Services, and really pushed on fluoridation. So once the government said, oh, 1.0 is excellent and it's safe up to 2.4, then all those lawsuits went away. Now, in the 1980s, when the pollution got even worse, they upped the contaminant level, actionable threshold, maximum contaminant level to 4 parts per million. And that's when things really began to explode because the studies haven't come up. Now, I'm a researcher. I'm an analyst. I've done a lot of research on this. I know more about this than I ever wanted to know. And in the beginning, they were saying it was going to reduce your cavities by 65%. And then they started coming out and saying 25%. And let me tell you, studies that just really blew me away. So they wanted to prove that one of the initial trial cities was Newburgh and Kingston, that kids in the fluoridated city had better teeth. So they looked at 1,500 kids in the 1980s because these kids have been drinking fluoridated water. The community's been drinking fluoridated water for 40 years. And they found out of 1,500 kids, there was no difference in the cavities in the fifth graders, no difference with the fourth graders, no difference with the third graders, and no difference with the second graders. There was no difference between the two communities as far as cavities. However, in the first graders, in the subgroup of the poorest children, they found an average of 1.5 cavities in the fluoridated communities and 2 cavities in the non-fluoridated community. Now, the difference between 1.5 and 2 is 25%. So what are the headlines? Reduces cavities by 25%. No. One kid who wants to sleep with sucking on a lollipop is going to screw this up. This is a small group of maybe 20 kids or so out of 1,500. And if you just look at this small group, 20 kids in one group and 20 kids in the other group, you got 1.5 versus 2 cavities, half a cavity difference. And that's not really a real difference because if that were to hold true, you'd see it in the second grade, the third grade, the fourth grade, the fifth grade. So that was just an aberration, and that was at 25%. So again, in the late 1980s, they decided they were going to do great big national studies because most of these fluoridationists truly believe the hype. They believe the mythology that fluoride is a magic potion. that's going to cure cavities. So they did a nationwide study of 39,000 kids across America in different communities, fluoridated and non-fluoridated. And when the study came out, it was very odd because the authors of the study only compared a couple of small subgroups in this community and that community, rather than using all the numbers. So a scientist got his hands on all the raw data after going through hell and high water to get it, and he looked at it all, and it found that there was no benefit. You know, some fluoridated communities had better teeth than non-fluoridated communities, and some non-fluoridated communities had better teeth than fluoridated communities. There was just natural variation. Fluoridation was coincidental, not causal. But if you want to do a little cherry picking and data manipulation and fiddle with your study design, you can make it come out to say 18% or 25% fewer cavities. But no, not really. One of my favorite studies was done in British Columbia, 6,000 or 7,000 children back in 2001. And they looked at fluoridated community and a non-fluoridated community. Again, this is 7,000 children. This isn't in 1,500, 7,000 children. And they found that the cavity rate went down in the community that stopped fluoridation, while remained unchanged in the community that continued fluoridation. This was in British Columbia, and this study was done back in 2001. And there are other studies like this as well. This was just a really well done, large study. Now, British Columbia, I understand, has no fluoridation left. They stopped it because the wastewater, remember, 99% of what we dump into our water, so that we drink it, goes right down the toilet. The wastewater was having an adverse effect on the salmon fisheries. And British Columbia did not like seeing that their salmon fisheries were suffering and they weren't reducing and everything. And they realized it was because of the fluoridated water. So they stopped fluoridating. So yeah, you'll find studies that'll say the opposite, but when you start looking at them, they're not good studies. They're really, really bad. Questions?
Hold on a second. I'm going to get Holly. So Holly, let's see if we can get you to, you're unmuted. Holly, you may speak. And Mark, it looks like you are next after Holly. Go ahead, Holly. You are on with Karen.
Hi, how's everybody doing?
Great, thank you.
Okay, so I have a question. In the 1980s, when I was sort of a young kid, they were giving out fluoride as mouthwash, and we took it as kids. It did affect.
I'm sorry, Holly, we've lost your audio.
I don't know what happened. Oh my goodness.
Did we lose her altogether? I think we lost
she
her altogether.
jumped off. That's
right.
okay. We're going to go to Mark and then Joey, and then if Holly comes back on, we'll put her on.
Okay.
Mark's iPhone, you are up and you can unmute. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Early on, you mentioned an article that was written, perfectly written. Is there any way that you could provide us with some of the information that you're putting out tonight?
Absolutely. If you go to Making Somerset Fluoride Free on Facebook, Elizabeth Paskowski has done a great job of putting a lot of stuff out there. And I can read to you the article because I have it here.
And can I add that in the description of the Zoom, I posted the link to the articles, and it's Article 35.
Yeah. And it's very short. It just says, the article is to instruct the Board of Selectmen to petition the state legislature for a home rule exemption to Massachusetts Fluoridation Law, Chapter 111, Section 8C, so that the town of Somerset can put into place an ordinance banning community water fluoridation. And this is consistent with what multiple KP law attorneys have told other communities. As a matter of fact, in April of 2019, the Manchester town meeting, the attorney said that what is required is a vote of town meeting to authorize the selectmen to seek a home rule petition from the state legislature, and that petition would identify, provide, and authorize the pathway to discontinue fluoridation, which would mean a new town meeting vote with a properly framed article. I think those two match up pretty perfectly. So Somerset is right on the money here.
Thank you. Mark, that was a great question.
And
Again, you can, any other questions?
sorry, Melissa, and you can use this in any town? This
And yes. You know, it took me a while. I'm from Gloucester, and I, started off in Gloucester with this in 2014, 2015. And it took me a while to figure out the convoluted process, because they want to stymie you. And they say things that aren't true, or sometimes they just don't understand and they make mistakes, but some other times they say things that are not true. And so it took me a while to figure out this process. And I call this the Cape Ann plan because I was from Gloucester. The municipal legislature, which is the town meeting in a town and a city council in a city, can do this when they're ruled by Chapter 111, Section 8C. Now, the exception to this is there are some water districts that have charters that exempt them from town control and give them home rule already. So there are water districts in Massachusetts, like Lynnfield and Sudbury, that have home rule, and they can vote it in and vote it out willy-nilly. So this confuses things for people in Massachusetts. They say, well, we know this town had it, and then they didn't, and then they put it back in. So why can't we? It's because of how the law is set up.
Excellent. Do we answer all your questions, Mark? I guess so. Let's see who's next. I go Holly came back on, but I want to get the next person, then Holly. Joey Joseph, you are up next, and then Holly. You are up.
Oh, you can give it to Holly. She's been waiting.
Okay. All right, Holly, then you come up, and Joey's waiting. What a gentleman he is.
Well, thank you. So what I was saying is that, when I was a kid in the 1980s, they used to give out fluoride mouthwash in classroom first thing in the morning. And I was wondering if there's any studies on that affecting children. We didn't ingest the fluoride, but we swished it around our mouths. And I'm sure we have buccals in our mouths and other glands that probably intercepted this fluoride. It probably absorbed somewhere. So I'm wondering if there's any studies showing the kids were affected that way.
Well, that's a good question, Holly. And there are studies showing that you do have systemic absorption when you have it topically applied, especially in the sensitive mucosal areas. I knew way back in the 1980s that I had to avoid fluoride because I would get mouth sores. I avoid the toothpaste. But that's a much higher concentration. I really didn't think that they would be putting things in the water that would be making me sick, even though I developed arthritis and IBS and all kinds of other chronic health problems. Well, in my 20s and 30s, I couldn't possibly be in the water. I did eventually figure out, actually a couple of years, that the city water was making me sick, and I was suspicious of the fluoride, but long story. So it does affect you. And I know people personally who did the swishing and they developed thyroid problems and other issues. And when you have thyroid problems and you get pregnant, your pregnancy can be very difficult. And so there's a lot of studies that women are more likely to have hypothyroidism when pregnant, and those kids are more likely to have problems. They're not specifically related back to the oral swishes, but I do know people anecdotally who will say that they believed it was either the fluoride tablets or the fluoride swishes that they were giving that were causing them thyroid problems. An aside on that I think is very interesting. I was talking to a dentist in another state, a female dentist, and there are lots of dentists opposed to fluoridation. Don't believe them when they tell you all dentists are in favor of it. That's not true. And she had, given her kids appropriate amounts of fluoride. She has, I think, 5 children. And the youngest couple had all these health problems. And then she began to realize that there may be a problem with fluoride, and she stopped giving her kids the fluoride. And the older kids had health problems, and the younger kids did not. And she was having a lunch with a big mucky muck in the State Dental Association. And they were talking about the thyroid. And, she doesn't use any fluoride anymore in her practice because she's aware of it. And she said to him, the studies, I've been telling you about it. These studies, you have daughters. And this can affect their thyroids and their reproductive ability and all this. Would you let your daughters drink this stuff? And the guy held up his menu in front of his face. And he whispered to her behind the menu, of course not. But we have to promote it for the good of our profession.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I could say a lot about that, but I'm not going to. I'm too fired up. Does that kind of answer your question? Could you share your website again? It is in the description along with the Somerset articles. Could you just share it for everyone?
Yes. Go to fluoridelawsuit.com. Fluoridelawsuit.com. Brenda actually owns the website, and she and I collaborate on it. Under the science tab, there's approximately 150 peer-reviewed studies published since 2015 in reputable medical and scientific journals documenting, validating the harm caused by fluoridation or fluoride exposure in presumed safe doses. Lots of interesting stuff. And what I like to say is that this constitutes a black swan event. You might have thought it was safe once upon a time. But with all of these studies showing that it's not safe for thyroid patients, kidney patients, people with autoimmune disease, inflammatory conditions, pregnant women, bottle-fed babies, you can't say it's safe. It's just not safe. And go to fluoridelawsuit.com and you'll see all kinds of stuff. You can also go to IAOMT.org, which is the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology. This is a group of dentists, and their fluoride facts page includes their 2017 position paper against any fluoride use, topical use or systemic use, which is very well done. It's a scientific paper, it's a position paper. Moms Against Fluoridation.org also has a lot of good information, including an interview with our attorney in the Tosca lawsuit that's going to be held in February. And he is right on the money. He did an excellent job in that interview. So you can find the information out there before you vote tomorrow night.
Thank you. And on your website, do you have those links as well that you just cited? Okay, perfect. So everyone can go there.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Joey, you are next.
Thank you. I just want to say I appreciate Melissa for sending me the link to come to this. I knew right away that I had to hear the information. She's a great patriot, so thank you, Melissa. Karen, 2 questions. 1, how do we detox from fluoride? And 2, I live in Rhode Island. Do you know any of the laws or issues or things that we can do to get fluoride out of Rhode Island?
Rhode Island is easier, Joey. In Rhode Island, you can vote it out. Melissa was at an event at the Rhode Island State House, and I was invited down there. That's when we first met. And it's a much easier process in Rhode Island than it is in Massachusetts to vote it out. So if you want to send, you can go to find my Facebook page. I don't try to hide. Text me your email and I'll text you some more information specific to Rhode Island. But you can get it out of the water in Rhode Island more easily than in Massachusetts, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes. Do you remember that she was at Freedom Fest? I actually just got the link of her speaking. So I will send it. And you met her because you were there. And so it's amazing to hear Rhode Island is easier for this. So we don't want to let that cat out of the bag because that governor will change that in a heartbeat.
Though Connecticut is harder. Connecticut,
Oh, the constitutional state? Really?
yeah, Connecticut has a state mandate. And it's really interesting. California put into place a state mandate, and Los Angeles and San Diego and a couple of big towns, no, we don't want to do it. But their city attorney said, you have to do it. It's a law. You have to do it. And so they did it. Those big cities did. But a couple of the smaller cities, I want to say San Rafael and San Jose, said, no, we're not going to do it. And they never fluoridated. Now, the California law is they have to fluoridate, but there was no teeth in it. So they didn't, and nothing happened. Arkansas has a state mandate, and the Ozark Water Authority in Arkansas is refusing to fluoridate because they know it's bad for the environment, it's bad for the people. But the Arkansas law has teeth, and they're fining these guys. They're fining them thousands of dollars every day for not fluoridating. So it's going to be really interesting how that plays out. So it's very different from state to state. So Massachusetts is convoluted, but we do have a path.
Thank you. Any other questions, Joseph, Julie?
Just about detoxing fluoride out of our bodies.
Yes, that's a hard one. I was suffering. I had dizzy spells every day, tendonitis, ringing my ears every day, kidney problems, pains in my kidneys several times a week. I was hospitalized with a liver swollen to twice its normal size. I had arthritis. It was crippling me. I was afraid I was going to be in a wheelchair. And I was getting pretty bad when I decided I was going to just go really cold turkey and no fluoride in any way, shape, or form, even to brush my teeth. I have to use no fluoride water even to brush my teeth. But I'll admit that I might be one of the most sensitive of the sensitive people. And one night, and I said, oh, maybe I'm feeling a little better. I don't know. So one night, it was 9 days after I stopped fluoridating. I stopped using fluoridated water for any purposes. And I got into bed at night and my eyes just popped open because it was like somebody had turned the switch. The noise was off. You see, I was in so much pain and had been for so long that when I went to bed at night to be able to sleep, I had to go through this process of, mentally dismembering myself to try to block out the pain. And I was not in pain anymore. And that's when my head spun around like the little girl in The Exorcist. What the heck? So I got deep into the research, and I am an analyst, and I always have loved research. And I've read studies going back to 1950, 1925, 1937. I've read studies, congressional records. I have just got thousands and thousands of hours of research in this. And they knew in every decade that it was bad, but it is profitable. Now, I mentioned before that the polluters suddenly had all their lawsuits go away if you say fluoride is good for you. They also had toxic waste that they would have to pay to dispose of, and now they're selling it. So instead of spending tens of thousands of dollars to dispose of it, they're earning thousands of dollars to sell it. So they have a motivation for this. The thing about the dentist is this. Now, most dentists are ignorant. Some are willfully blind and a few are dishonest, but when dentists advocate for fluoridation, they're also advocating for the fluoride treatments. Now, my dentist friends, and I have many of them who are opposed to fluoridation, tell me that a dental practice can earn between $80,000 and $400,000 a year in fluoride treatments, which are covered by insurance. So if you're in a non-fluoridated community, the dentist will say, well, Mrs. Jones, I think, we're not fluoridated here. I think it's really important that we give your son a treatment so, to protect his teeth. If you're in a fluoridated community, he'll say, well, Mrs. Jones, it's good we're in a fluoridated community because it's so good for him. But, I want to be sure, so I want to give him fluoride treatments to protect his teeth. So fluoridation promotion for the dentists is advertising for this very profitable fluoride treatment thing that they're doing. Also, approximately half of American kids, according to CDC and FDA data, have dental fluorosis on at least 2 teeth. Much of it might be in the back teeth, but you don't see it, but some of it's on the front teeth. And 10% or more of American children will have, because it'll be unattractive. And they will go and they will get costly veneers to hide the damages in adulthood, which again is very profitable for the dentist. And fluorosed teeth are also more brittle, so they're more likely to break. So the dentists are more likely to be getting crowns out of this. Now, I don't think the dentists are most of them at least, are not intentionally thinking, oh, we're going to poison the teeth so we'll get to do more cosmetic dentistry. But this is something that will make them willfully blind to the facts of the matter because it is profitable to the bottom line. And the bills that I have before the state legislature right now to ban fluoridation, and please call your representatives and tell them to vote in favor of these bills, are being very actively opposed by the Massachusetts Dental Society. Now, the Massachusetts Dental Society, like the ADA, is not a consumer group. It is a membership group. They are to promote for the benefit of the dentist. They are to promote the dentist's bottom line. They'll say, oh, aren't we wonderful? We're trying to take money out of our own pocket by encouraging fluoridation. It's not really working that way. It's increasing their bottom line, whether they will admit it or not. Now, many dentists who are opposed to fluoridation were previously pro-fluoridation. Dr. John Cahoon in New Zealand, Dr. Heidi Lineback in California, in Canada, Bill Osmondson out in the Pacific West, David Kennedy in California. These are big-time dentists. Heidi Lineback and I actually collaborated on a study. I never thought I was going to be writing a study published in a science journal about rats' teeth and fluoridation and all this type of stuff, but I did in collaboration with Heidi Lineback. He was the head of preventive dentistry at the University of Toronto. He was also a scientist on the 2006 National Research Council for the National Academy of Science about the EPA goals for fluoride in water. And they found that they were not protective of human health. The EPA has done nothing after that study was published. But anyway, these guys famously came out and stood in front of people. Heidi went into his class. He's teaching college classes in dentistry and said, I have to apologize to you. I've been teaching for the past X number of years that fluoride is good. It is not. It is dangerous to people. So you will find lots of dentists who will say that. You'll also find many more dentists, like a couple in my old hometown in Gloucester, who say, yeah, we know it's not helping and we don't use it in our practice, but we don't want to make trouble with our patients or with the Mass Dental Society. So we're just going to keep our mouth shut. Anyone here know Italian?
This is the thing. Like, do people realize over time, I'll put my video on, that, think about it. We were allowed like lead paint. Then we realized lead paint, little chips were poison. And then all these little things over time, you just go on the CDC website. Oh, we didn't realize that wasn't healthy. We didn't realize it. So all I care about is choice. When they put things in a blanket thing, we don't have a choice. If you want to put spoonfuls of fluoride in your water, go right ahead. But when you do this, if we don't have a choice, that's the problem. And there's so many things we put in our body we don't need. I'll just bring up shopping at Stop and Shop the other day. They jacked up all the deli meat, $8, but the GMO meat was like $3. It's like it's constantly unhealthy stuff, and we're not going to be healthy. We're going to keep, just like you said, being sick, which causes you need health care. And I think some doctors meant good. Like, I don't think people did it maliciously. They trusted CDC or whatever. And then over time, they realized, and then how can they get it back? And we just saw a recent article from Blue Cross Blue Shield that was showing evidence that doctors were being paid bonuses to pump vaccinations. And they always denied it. And now we have evidence of it. So I just don't know consciously, like, if they're pumping it and they're getting paid, it's just something to raise a question. And we shouldn't even have to go through this process. It should not be a process. And so my other question is people would bring, and I had asked the same question to Elizabeth, is does it cost any money to remove it? And are they going to lose any money? Because like you said, are any areas getting perks for putting fluoride in? Because to me, I think every town, people that are fiscally responsible or are money watchers, would be the first to stop this if it was costing the town money, regardless of how they felt about fluoride. So do we have any evidence, or how can we search that? Because it's all about the money. It isn't people right or left, they don't care.
Oh yeah, I did a presentation for the Fitchburg City Council back in April of 2023. I called it liability, legality, and ledgers, about the economic impact as well as the liability issues. And oh my God, you can go to my YouTube page and you look up liability, legality, and ledgers, Karen Spencer or whatever, see if you can find my YouTube page. I go into a lot of that. God, I fit so much in 20 minutes. They look like they were stuck in the headlights when I was done with them. But the dentist spoke first, and then a bunch of city councilors started posturing as one of the top 10 benefits, and they didn't pay any attention to the science or the legality of the ledgers or whatever. But no, you are buying something that you're adding to your water. And when you add the fluoride to the water, you also have to add buffering chemicals because the pH is way off. So you have to add more buffering chemicals. They say, oh, the fluoride is only costing us $10,000. I think it was, what was the name of the town? Dover, New Hampshire. The guy up there, water, said, yeah, we're spending about $10,000 a year on fluoridation chemicals. We're spending an extra $9,000 annually on the testing equipment and the other chemicals, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have the infrastructure. Many water workers are opposed to fluoridation because it destroys infrastructure, and you're constantly having to fix the infrastructure and then replace the infrastructure. So it's hastening, accelerating the deterioration of your water treatment plants because of its high caustic nature. So stopping fluoride, no, it doesn't cost you anything. You're not spending that money. It's a win all around. The only one small cost you might have from stopping fluoride is if you have a bunch of fluoride chemicals on site and you're not putting it in anymore, you have to get rid of them. And guess what? These things are characterized as hazardous waste. Under the hazardous waste thing, it's illegal to dispose of them in water. It's legal to put them in a little bit at a time, but you can't dispose of them. So disposing of it can be an issue. I would say, plan on ending your fluoridation like a month or so out, and maybe, or try to find someone who will buy it off of you, or you're just going to have to, to pay to have the hazardous waste removed. And if you look at my liability ledgers and legality presentation on YouTube, I kind of go into all the laws that are really being broken by doing this. But they have all these little paper get arounds to make it legal, even though under other laws it wouldn't be legal. So no, you save money. And you'll have fewer people with kidney disease, thyroid. There's a big study in 2015 in England nationwide study that found at least 30% more diagnosed cases of low thyroid in fluoridated communities. Other studies show that when you stop fluoridation, the evidence of dental fluorosis drops like a rock. It goes way down because dental fluorosis is poisoning teeth during early childhood. And like I said, these teeth are more brittle, so they're going to cause more things. So it's not going to cost you any money. You might have some logistics in getting rid of the chemical, but that's it.
Awesome. Another question is, how do we change this law that's making us go through the process? Because I'm big at like the state house stuff, and that's the main thing is why are we doing like hurdles to do this? Can we put something together to do that? Because I'd be happy to help.
Yes. Write down these numbers. S 460, Senate Bill 460, and H 827, House Bill 827. Those are the identical verbiage, one for the Senate, one for the House, to change the Massachusetts fluoridation law to a fluoridation ban. It had its public hearing in September. They are still taking written testimony. The Joint Committee is taking written testimony. So, I should have had that email handy, but
Is that on your website?
No,
well?
the website is national with Brenda and me. This is a state thing, but I can get the email at some point and send it off to you guys.
Thank you. If you send it to me, I'll put my email out there so I can send all those documents and how we can get involved in Massachusetts or other states and continue this conversation, because we get very complacent and we need to stop this horse and pony show and be able to do because they keep putting us in hurdles over and over again, and they delay things just like, and then people don't know because you're shadow banned. I'm actually on Facebook restrictions, so I have to do Zoom, and we just want people to be heard. And I knew about the house thing that you were doing, and we need to get together for this support because it's these little things that add up. So again, it's just a little bit of fluoride. It's just a little bit of GMO. It's all these little things. You add all these little things, it's a 100% poison package.
Yeah. If you go to a state legislature and you find these bills, they'll tell you it's being heard by the Joint Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. Yay, hallelujah. Because approximately 98 to 99% of what we add to the water goes right into the environment. And the stuff that we're buying, I know the sodium fluoride that Gloucester and Rockport was buying was coming from Shanghai, China. It was being, and I quote, harvested from the pollution control devices of industry in Shanghai. We are literally adding Shanghai smog to our water supplies. And every batch is contaminated with arsenic and lead and aluminum and barium and cadmium, all kinds of things they don't test for, a few things that they do test for, like arsenic. Now, there is no safe level of arsenic. The contaminant level goal is 0, but they allow you to put up to 50 parts per million in the water. So every year, we're adding tons and tons of this chemical that has some arsenic into it, into our environment. Stuff that originated either in the phosphate industry down south or in Shanghai factories where the air is so smoggy you can't see your hand in front of your face. We're literally putting Shanghai smog into our water, the sodium fluoride. And I know you're using sodium fluoride, which is what Gloucester and Rockport were using too. So where I live now, they're not fluoridating. Yay! So it is utter insanity. And you talk to these politicians, they say, well, I don't know if I have the intelligence to do this on our own. We don't know this stuff. We're going to have to depend on experts like the Department of Public Health. Let me make something very perfectly clear here. The local Board of Health is the operating arm of the Massachusetts State Department of Public Health, which is under the direction of Health and Human Services. Health and Human Services, I am given to understand, has a budget, an annual budget in excess of $100 million a year to promote fluoridation. That money trickles down to the small group of dentists in the CDC, whose job it is to promote fluoridation, and then to the states, and then to the boards of health. The Board of Health does not have the authority. I don't bother talking to the Board of Health. They don't have the authority to take it out of the water. And it would be, they would lose their jobs if they did, because the Massachusetts Department of Public Health tells them you have to do what we tell you to do. So you're back to Health and Human Services. And the Safe Drinking Water Law says that they can't tell you to put fluoride in the water. They can recommend it, but they can't tell you. But the politicians are interpreting that as being, oh, they're telling us to do this, and we have to do what they tell us to do.
Can I just say I'm having a little PTSD here?
Yeah.
Of like when I'm going to let Mark speak next before we end, but it's when they said we didn't put the law in about the mask mandates. It was up to every town and community. It was never a law. It's for your good. Even the vax, it was never a law, you know. And that you just said something like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I'm remembering things. I'm starting not to breathe.
Yeah.
But I would like Mark to speak. He is awesome. This guy has a family. He is so on board with everything, and I need Mark to speak. So Mark, please go. You have the floor with Karen.
Yeah, just hearing, I'm with you on that one. It's outrageous. It's so blatant. I think one of the big takeaways is it's in the water. Are we able to remove it ourselves? Like for me and my family, we use a zero water for anything that we drink or we cook our food in. Is that a way to get this stuff out?
Yeah, I don't think, yeah, that's a good question, Mark. And I don't think I adequately answered a question that was asked to me previously about detoxing from it. If you're very, very careful, you can kind of get it, your acute system, you can make that recede after a period of two to 4 weeks. You know, you can get that to feel better. But fluoride is at least 50% of what a healthy adult consumes is stored in their bones. And that has like a 20-year half-life. So you can kind of detox your soft tissues, and the damage done to the bones, and I drank it for decades, and I have permanent damage done to my bones from poisoning that started in my late 20s. And I'm suffering now because of it, and I am just livid because it didn't need to happen. So there is really no easy way to detox, although some people will say, you know, vitamin D, vitamin C, same type of stuff they're talking for other things. You know, there are different things you can do. I don't know how well they help or they don't well. As far as filters go, different people swear by this one or that one. And I know a lot of people who got their filters, and although it seemed to work for the first few weeks, after a month or two, they weren't happy with it. I have a friend who has an adult autistic son. I told Melissa this story. And he would get violent headaches after the shower. And they finally realized, you know, migraines, that it was a fluoride in the water. And they really, you know, looked and looked. They finally found a filter that kind of worked. Now, it's supposed to be good for 6 months. It only lasts for 3 months. And they have to set the timer for this guy for like 3 minutes. He can't take a shower for longer than 3 minutes. If he's in the shower for longer than 3 minutes, or if the filter is older than 3 months old, he's going to get a violent migraine. Now, he is very, very far up there in the autistic scale. This guy, there's no artifice in him. He gets a headache, and everybody knows about it. So, yeah, it's really, really hard to find something to avoid it.
So can I just, what he asked was a very, very interesting question. So all the filter systems we use, right, Brita, Pure, think about it. It doesn't recognize fluoride as a problem. So all these filters that we're using does not take fluoride out. Is that correct?
Now,
Like it doesn't filter it, correct?
no, there are some filters that say they'll remove fluoride. And when I've talked to the people who've done the testing, and they say, for the first few weeks, but they tell you the filter is good for 6 months, and it doesn't, fluoride is very, very tiny. It's easy to filter out chlorine. They say, oh, you should be more concerned about chlorine. It's easy to get fluoride. You can put a bottle of chlorinated water in the refrigerator with the cap off, and the chlorine will dissipate. So it's easy, and simple carbon filters. It's easy to get rid of chlorine, but fluoride is very difficult to get rid of. Very, very difficult. So I don't recommend any filters. I don't recommend any waters. I will tell you that when people say, well, this brand of water, bottled water, is good for me, it might be good for you if you're living in Massachusetts, but not if you're living in California, because it's the same brand, but it's being sourced from different springs. And it's not like the stuff is being manufactured at one plant. It's the source, which is the springs. And that is going to change from place to place. Oh, I will give a plug for Pocahontas Springs at Boston Clear Water in Lynnfield. Excellent water. No fluoride water there. If you bring your own, fill up your bottles. For this group, it's a little bit, Glenfield is a little bit far away from you down there in Somerset. But, if you can find a natural spring that you know is fluoride free, that's the best thing to do. Bottled waters, I hesitate to recommend anything in public about bottled water. I do have a brand I use that I know is safe, but like I say, things change so much. I hate to recommend things.
So all our bottled water has fluoride in it, Poland Springs, all that. And even the filters, it doesn't say remove fluoride, unless there's specific ones that say that. So we're downing bottles and bottles of all the spring water. It has fluoride in it? Is this correct?
Some does. I remember one night after I'd been fluoride free, very, very careful back in 2014, and I'd been to the supermarket and I picked up some bottled water. And that night I was up all night going to the bathroom. And around 4 or 5 a.m., I'm going downstairs and I'm checking the bottled water I bought. And sure enough, it had fluoride in it, because I was just saying, oh, I bought bottled water. But some bottled water has fluoride in it, some doesn't. Poland Springs supposedly does not have fluoride in it. Even before I knew I couldn't tolerate fluoride in water, I knew I couldn't tolerate Poland Springs water. I don't know what it is about that water, but as I understand it, Poland Springs is not even using spring water. They're just filtering tap water, and they claim there's no fluoride in it, but I can't tolerate it. So, and I know that's a very popular brand around here, but I can't drink that one.
Mark, any other questions? Because, it would be nice maybe on your website, or if you can send me stuff and I'll post it, of waters that specifically say like no fluoride, and we can like advertise it, and we can do these things, because Mark gave a good question. I never thought of that, that we're putting it in our bodies. And then also I tell people we're showering with all this stuff. So even remove it from digesting, because a lot of us don't drink tap water. How much is coming through our pores when we're showering? And I'll end with that question, and then anyone else, and then we'll close out.
Well, some from showering in it. If you have eczema or psoriasis and you're showering with it, it's an inflammatory drug, and it is going to worsen your eczema or psoriasis if you have an active outbreak. If you're not having an active outbreak, might it cause it? It might not. It's going to depend on the person. We are absorbing it. I've always got, had a chlorine filter on my shower, because although it won't take out the fluoride, chlorine and fluoride act synergistically, worsening the ill effects of both. So it reduces the impact of the fluoride a little bit when you take out the chlorine, and you can buy a shower filter fairly cheaply to take out the chlorine, and that's something. In the mouth, though, with the mucosal tissues in the mouth, no. I had to switch to get rid of my symptoms. I had to switch to buying bottled water to brush my teeth
Mm.
and to wash my food.
Unbelievable. Oh my, I know this, Mark, any other questions? Anyone have any other questions? Because I could go on for hours and I would be.
Yeah, Karen, thank you very much for doing this. So, with all of your resources that you have and that you've generated, have you put together a template for someone like us in the general public who could get and print it out and just bring it to our health department or our town councils? And if not, Melissa, I'd be more than happy to work with you to try to put something together that people can easily just bring up and start the adjudication part of this issue. I mean, it's something I've thought about. Obviously, with now I have kids, it's kind of taking a back burner to all the other nonsense that's going on in this world, but it's a big deal.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I call it the Cape Ann plan for Massachusetts, how to get it out of the water in Massachusetts, which is different than Rhode Island or Maine or Connecticut or Vermont or, any other state. So the first thing you need to do is you need to know what the state law is. And for those of us in Massachusetts, we have something right now at the State House. So you go to and find the address, and I'll send it to Melissa or whatever, for the Joint Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, and you contact them and you tell them you support these bills to ban fluoridation, and then you contact and you phone people, you phone your own representatives and tell them, look, this is a bad thing and we want to stop it. And you can point them to website fluoridelawsuit.com or to IAOMT or Moms Against Fluoridation or, fluoride alert.org, any of these websites that have been posting this stuff. Now they'll say all kinds of things. And like I said, most of them are ignorant. Some of them are willfully blind. Few of them are dishonest. So you gotta, have your stuff in your back pocket to be able to pull it out and say, look, the IAOMT is not the only dental organization against fluoride. So is the IABDM and the HDA. And there's all kinds of stuff out there if you look for it. I've been doing my best between my Facebook page and the other site to make it available, as has Moms Against Fluoridation, Fluoride Action Network, IAOMT. But they do the same thing. When I started with this fluoridation business back in 2014, people were saying I was an anti-vaxxer and an anti-mask, anti-vaxxer and a baby killer. Now, I didn't even know there was any argument about vaccines. I didn't know there was any controversy about them. I was amazed. Why did he tell me? I'm just talking about fluoridation. Name calling is the thing, just. So then I started working, looking into vaccines, and I have stories about that vaccines as well, will make your hair curl. And I came up with my own statement, which is medical mandates are politics pretending to be science. They benefit the financial health of corporations at the expense of individual and population health. And that's why I said, whenever you're talking about medical mandates, you're talking about politics, not science. And so, this whole business with the COVID and whatever, they're using the same, forgive me, but goddamn template they've used with fluoridation. I read 1955 congressional hearing, and you had this docket of wonderful doctors and scientists standing up there and testifying that fluoridation was increasing cancer rates, was causing all these illnesses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they had really good, decent science for the time. And they're testifying it. And then Senator Gerald Ford, this is 1950s, got up and said, Grand Rapids has fluoridation and we want the same benefits here in Green Bay that Grand Rapids has. And we want fluoridation and we want it now because we want those benefits. What? Are you listening? Are you even listening? These doctors are constantly talking about people who are miserable with all kinds of illnesses because of fluoridation. And when they go to bottled water and they get rid of the fluoride in the water, their illnesses go away. They want to believe the magic potion narrative. We've always wanted to believe the magic potion narrative, whether it's fluoride in the water or vaccines or you know, wireless technology and or GMOs and pesticides and agricultures and biosludge. All of these things are experimental science on consumers that are benefiting the financial health of the corporate world and not helping the people at all. When they first started the fluoridation, there was one study that got to in the initial trials that got to the end, and it was on pregnant women and young children. And the researchers said that a portion of the allergic population had to be dropped in the study because of acute reactions, which included bloody vomit and rashes and profound fatigue, all kinds of things. And they had done double-blind studies, taking them off, putting them back on, and they determined it was the fluoride that were making a portion of this population sick. And they wrote in their update and in their final report that it's one thing to drop people from a controlled dose study, but it's another thing when you put it in the water that a portion of the allergic population was going to be suffering if you fluoridated the water. Now, the Public Health Service said, we consider the matter closed. I was a toddler at the time. I was just a little girl at the time. And they decided at that point in time that my life and the lives of my children and my grandchildren didn't matter. That's what made me start swearing the first time at Catholic girl parochial school. That's when I just lost it. I couldn't believe it. They knew in the 1950s, they knew in the 1940s, they knew in the 1930s, they knew in the 1970s. They've always known that a portion of the population is going to be sick with this. Now, back in the 1950s, less than 10% of the population had allergies. Now it's about 50% of the population has allergies.
Yep, you are right. And so, in your website, I think, you know, with the article that was well written, which again, your website and the article for Somerset is in the description. Do you have something that you could send me or on your website that would literally have exactly what we're talking? Like, this is an article of, and this is the process. Because I like to put things out like this is what you would do, just like you said. So can we put something together so people would know how to do this in every town of the process and what can happen? And, you know, because people need to kind of they don't want to mess it up.
Yeah,
do you have that already?
Yeah, I do. I call it the KPM plan. And basically, you know, the article that Somerset has is the process, and for Massachusetts, and the state bill, Senate Bill 460 and House Bill 827, is, you know, really the big cure, which I suggest we all need to follow. There are other bills in other states. Oklahoma has a bill to ban fluoridation. There are several other bills in other states to ban fluoridation. And we're really hoping that this trial in February, I really believe we're going to win it. All indications look like we're going to win it. It's been a real interesting situation. And you can go to see the interview with Michael Connett, which was just in October, which is fabulous on that. And that you can find that on various places. I think Moms Against Fluoridation has it front and center, as does Fluoride Alert. So
now, can I ask, Somerset's not the only one that ever did this in Massachusetts. Are there any other ones that we can kind of put together to show any progress, or we can learn from mistakes?
That is an interesting question. That is an interesting question, Melissa. Amesbury in 2009, I believe, stopped fluoridating. The water workers stopped fluoridating because the sodium fluoride, which you're using, just kept cutting up everything. And the Board of Health tried to make them stop. And they said, no, we're not going to do it because it is messing up our things and we're not going to make it do it. Massachusetts law doesn't have any teeth. And so there was no consequences. Water board just said, we're not going to do it. No consequences. So the Board of Health got cute and they got the town to petition the state for a home rule exemption for the purpose, not of banning it, but of holding a binding referendum, because a referendum vote would not have been binding unless, they got that. So they got it and they had a binding referendum. Now the Board of Health just thought, oh, no brainer. The science says this is good. The CDC says this is good. It's going to pass. Well, the water workers went and knocked on doors, and it was going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, $1 million. I don't know, money that big, all the same to me. And they voted no, we don't want to fluoridate. So Amesbury ended in 2011, and it was because it started with a home rule petition, but in that case, to hold a binding referendum, and they lost. Now, Edgartown had an interesting experience in 2018, 2019. The Board of Health ordered that fluoridation stop. Now they had a water commission, and the water commissioner said, wait a minute, we're not under Chapter 111, Section 8C. We have our own authority. And the Board of Health says, no, you don't. We can overrule you. We're saying we should do this. And the water commission, no, you don't. And big brouhaha. But anyway, it went to a vote, which would be the process. They got the signatures through Chapter 111, Section 8C. And they went to a vote. And Edgartown voted not to fluoridate. Now, the Board of Health could order it back into the water another 2 years. The law says every 2 years, the Board of Health can order it in. And once it gets in, it can't come out, but they can keep ordering it in until it gets in. So, Edgartown was brilliant. They put together an article for their town meeting saying that the Board of Health doesn't, because they had home rule, because it wasn't in the water, they could do this. They didn't need a special act. They had home rule already because it wasn't in. They had that the Board of Health could not arbitrarily order fluoridation to stop. But fluoridation to start in Edgartown would require all the water commissioners, as well as the Board of Health, as well as the town Board of Selectmen, to agree. And then you still have an opportunity for the people to overrule it. So Edgartown does have a municipal ordinance overriding Chapter 111, Section 8C, which is cool. But it was, again, those two were a little bit quirky, but they're consistent with what we're talking about doing in Somerset.
Excellent. And if we can kind of put that together so we can find a way to follow the history, that would be awesome. David has a question, and then we're going to wrap it up. David's awesome. You've met David, and he's great. He's
Hi,
helping
Karen.
Elizabeth
Hi,
and all of us.
everybody. Yeah, so I was wondering if you have anything to say about the MWRA, the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority, because they pump this water from the Quabbin Reservoir to their facility in Marlborough, where they pour, I think, the hydrofluosilicic acid into it, and then they give it to like over 50 towns, and they stopped doing it for a few months last spring. I don't know what they were really doing. They said they were upgrading their system, but I've at least one time I questioned like a bureaucrat from the MWRA at the event, and he was like all prepared to like defend fluoride, even though that's not what the event was about or anything. And I'm wondering, how can we stop them? Because I'm like, the towns that are serviced by the MWRA, if they want to stop fluoridating, they would have to like switch to a different water provider, or what would we have to do? I live in Weston, and we get the MWRA water.
Yeah,
so.
well, Massachusetts has about 4 million people drinking fluoridated water, and about 2 million of them are on the MWRA water supply from Quabbin. And I saw that when they took it offline for 3 months to upgrade the system. And I got together a bunch of people, including Rick, who has since dropped off this phone call, to write the MWRA and say, you know, you're throwing good money after bad here. Pay attention to what's happening. And I sent them the stuff. And I had a bunch of people who were on MWRA water sign that petition. And of course, they studiously ignored it, didn't respond. But back to Melissa's thing, I have that published on fluoridealert.org, and it is a nice little template saying, okay, water commissioners, this is why the heck you should stop doing that. And it includes 20 environmental reference, not human references. On fluoridelawsuit.com, it's all about human consumption and animal studies and whatever. But on the NWRA letter I have 20 references having to do with the environmental impact. And you have plant textbooks saying don't use fluoridated water. I talked to zoos and aquariums, and they're very careful to get all the fluoride out of their water. None of their animals get fluoride because it makes them sick. So it's really interesting. The problem is, just like with the whole business with vaccines and masks, people feel as if they need to follow the leader, and so is the leader, whether it's Trump or Biden or Fauci or whomever else. If that person says this is what we're going to do, I'm going to be a good soldier and defend him and do what he tells me what I'm going to do. And I don't care. On the fluoride battle, we get people on both sides of the vaccine issue and whatever. These are all different issues. But the real issue here is medical mandates of politics pretending to be science. And we should not be following any so-called expert because they say so. We should be really looking at the data. And that's didn't happen in fluoridation, and it's not happening in other areas either. And it's a pretty sad situation we find ourselves in. Did that answer your question, David?
Not quite, because can a town that's in the MWRA region, can they get their town votes to end fluoridation? Then what would they do for water? Like, how do you like overcome that problem?
You can't. The water comes from where the water comes from. It has to be it has to be a political solution. You have to I think
so we need a movement to get the MWRA to stop fluoridating.
We need to change the state law.
Mm-hmm.
We need to change the state law, and that's S460 H827. Tell everybody to petition, to send emails to your state representatives and to the joint community saying we support the ban on fluoridation based on the evidence of harm to people and environment. And that particular bill has more in it than it really should for a bill, but I wanted to get it out there because I'm not going to have multiple chances to talk here, saying the reason why we should not be doing this. And it's because it's bad for people, it's bad for environment, it's bad for the economy. It is just, there's plenty of evidence about it.
Thank you so much. Karen, we love you. I appreciate everyone being here. This is so awesome. I hope we can work together and spread knowledge. I shared a bunch of links. I want everyone to go to Karen's site. I sent my email. This was also streamed live on YouTube, so it's there if you don't want to get the Zoom link. And let's just educate people and see how we can work together and not let this go. So thank you so much, Karen. I appreciate you. Thank you, Elizabeth. And everyone that's doing this.
This is really important. Everyone needs to attend tomorrow night, and you need to stay to the bitter end, and you need to vote to pass this. That's what needs to be done. That is the first step. You do that, that's going to go to the State House. Where this other bill is, this Somerset has a real opportunity to make a difference in being maybe the first domino in taking this down. So I really hope people show up with your friends and neighbors and you all vote.
Thank you. I mean, a lot of people here are not in Somerset and they only let certain people in for this vote, but we're trying to get the word out and we'll keep everyone posted. So, you know, if we have success here or not, we should always try to support each other in getting the word out everywhere. And, you know, first steps, you know, keep trying.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. God bless. Stay safe and trust the science. Not really. Question the science. This is what we do. Thank you again. God bless everyone. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.